Well, it's just about Halloween. Halloween is tomorrow. So I hope you get to go out and trick or treat and wear your cute costume. And I thought we would read some more of the Gravedigger. We're on chapter 6. It's called Run. Run. I put out my jack-o'-lantern. I didn't carve it. I bought it like that. It's supposed to do smoke and change colors, but he just stopped. It felt like the first time that Andrew had seen the sun since they moved into their new house. He'd spent all morning working on his new book and decided it was time for a break. As he wandered out into the backyard, he glanced at the sky above him. It was a clear blue without a cloud in sight. It's about time, he thought. We've had nothing but dark clouds, rain, thunder, and lightning every day this past week. The ghosts hadn't showed up. The ghosts hadn't showed up all day. As Andrew sipped his coffee, he hoped that they were keeping out of trouble, which is difficult for 4 friendly ghosts with a lot of spare time on their hands. Andrew reclined in the lounge chair, picking up the newspaper, and relaxed in the warm morning sun. Within minutes, he had dozed off. Jamie used to joke about her father's ability to sleep any time of day. Even if he'd just woken up from a good night's sleep, he could fall asleep again within minutes. It's a dad thing, Paula says. If he didn't fall asleep all the time, he wouldn't be a normal dad. Of course, Jamie would argue that he had never been a normal dad. Arrgh. A scream seemed to pierce Andrew, waking him up in an instant. As he jumped to his feet, still half asleep, he spun around in a desperate attempt to figure out where the scream had come from. The scream was unmistakable. It was Wolfie. It wasn't just the scream that woke him up, but a deep rumbling sound that seemed to be getting louder. As Andrew looked up, he could see what was making the loud rumbling. The blue skies had turned gray, and they were racing, and there, racing toward him, was a large black cloud that rolled across the sky, getting closer and closer and louder. And when it came, the terrified screams of Wolfie, Count Vanya, Mummy, and Lex Killen from out of nowhere. Count Vanya flew through the wall around the graveyard and across the backyard to Andrew. "He's coming after us!" he screamed. "Who's coming after you?" Andrew asked before he could answer. Lex Killen came screaming through the wall, closely followed by Mummy. As they ran around the yard, Lex dropped his head and Mummy fell over his bandages. "He's right behind us!" shouted Lex. "Get in the house!" yelled Mummy. "What's going on?" asked Andrew again. "There's no time to explain," said Connor. That's no Connor, said Count Vanya. "Just get inside quickly." As they ran toward the back door that led into the kitchen, Wolfie's screaming could be heard in the distance. "Run, Wolfie, run!" yelled Lex Killen as Andrew followed the ghosts inside. Andrew slammed the door closed and bolted it. "What about Wolfie?" asked Mummy. "How will he get in?" "The same way he always does. He runs straight through it," answered Andrew. Running to the window, Tell me the truth right now, he continued. What have you done and who is chasing you? We haven't done anything, shouted Count Vanya. It's Ebenezer Krim. He's after us. He has a big machine and he's trying to suck us into it, said Mummy. Just then, across the grass, they could see Wolfie. By now, the clouds that raced across the sky were above the house. As Wolfie sprinted for the door, Andrew noticed that something behind the wall was sucking everything toward it. The trees in the yard were bent backwards by the suction of the powerful vacuum, their leaves getting ripped off the branches, and Wolfie was being pulled back across the grass toward whatever it was. Keep running, Wolfie, screamed Andrew. Keep running. It was as though Wolfie was running and getting nowhere, but slowly he made it to the door. As he did, the door flew open, and from inside the kitchen, the rest of them could see Wolfie's paws, followed by his head. Mummy ran to him, grabbed him by the ears, and yanked him inside, forcing both of them to fall to the floor. Andrew turned and looked back. Out the window, things were calming down. The trees had returned to their normal shape, and only a few things were being sucked through the air and down behind the wall. Then suddenly there was silence. Andrew could hear his own breathing loud in his ears. He turned and looked at the others. By now, Wolfie was on his feet and stood with his back to the open door, puffing and panting. Outside, the daylight was slowly leaving, being replaced by darkness. It looked as though someone was dimming the lights. A familiar evil face appeared above the wall. It was Ebenezer Krim. His long, pale face looked even more menacing than it did before as he climbed to the top of the wall, hoisting a long black machine up beside him. The machine itself looked no more dangerous than a normal vacuum, except it had a few more lights and made a much louder noise. Andrew guessed that this had to be the machine Ebenezer Krim was using to suck everything up. It almost got Wolfie. Run, Wolfie. What happened out there? Asked Andrew, turning to the rest of them. When all of a sudden he appeared before us, waving that machine, shouting how he was going to get us. And you weren't causing any trouble? Asked Andrew. No, we were minding our own business, replied Wolfie. Do you think he saw you the same way Jamie, Paula, and I can? No, he's just the same as other humans, replied Count Vanya. He can only see us for short periods of time. I know you're in there, came a shout from the darkness outside. Ebenezer Krim was sitting on top of the wall holding his machine. How do you like my little homemade ghost killer? He asked, patting the machine. Quite powerful, isn't it? He laughed. Even his laugh sounded evil, like a witch's deep cackle. Wolfie slammed the door shut. That man scares me, said Mummy. Andrew looked around the kitchen at the others. They were in agreement with Mummy. It seems the only person who wasn't afraid of Ebenezer Krim was Andrew. What do you want, Mr. Krim? Shouted Andrew through the window. It's quite simple, he replied. I would like all of the ghosts to come out here one by one. Why do you want them to come out? Asked Andrew. Do you want to talk to them? No, Mr. Price, Mr. Krim replied. I don't want to talk to them. I want to destroy them. Wolfie, Count Vanya, Mummy, and Lex Killen all looked at each other. No one said anything, but they were all thinking the same thing. They couldn't hide it. They were terrified. "In that case, Mr. Krim, they won't be coming out," yelled Andrew. Mr. Krim didn't seem bothered. "That's okay," he replied. "I can wait. I'll wait all night if I have to." Andrew turned to the others and said, "Don't panic. He's bluffing. He'll be gone in a couple of hours." Lex Killen went to speak, but as always, he only managed to spit some salt water onto the floor. "Sorry," he murmured. "I'm not so sure myself. Mr. Ebenezer Krim seems a very determined sort of chap." "Well," replied Andrew, rewind. "We'll just have to stay in here until he decides to leave." "How long do you think that will take?" asked Mummy. "As long as it takes," Andrew answered. It was the daylight on Jamie's face that eventually woke him. He turned his sleepy head around the kitchen to see his father asleep on the chair, Paula asleep on the table, and the ghosts asleep anywhere there was space. Jamie and Paula had arrived home from school the previous day to find themselves in the middle of a standoff between everyone in their house and Ebenezer Krim. Jamie got up from the table and walked to the window, just in time to see Ebenezer Krim climb down from the wall and drag his machine away across the grass behind him and up the hill. As he reached the top of the hill, he turned and stared back at Jamie. Although it was only for a few seconds, to Jamie it felt like hours. Even though he was far away, Jamie could still make out his evil grin as he turned and walked over the hill. "No doubt we'll be seeing you again, Mr. Krim," thought Jamie. Chapter 7, The Gravedigger, next time. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.